Hello and welcome to yet another episode of DisruptX Impact Series, focused on the future of agritech. In this episode, we will discuss investor activities in the agritech landscape, a market that's been hot. For perspective, between 2014 and 2020, there have been 33 investment deals in agri-tech startups amounting to $250 million. Some examples include Red Sea Farms that raised $16 million of funding in August 2021, while Pure Harvest secured $180.5 million in their latest growth funding round. On that note, allow me to welcome our speaker for this episode, Yousef Hamidaddin, Managing Partner at VentureX and Board Member at HASSAD, a business acceleration program designed for the next generation of agri-tech and agri-food startups in Jordan. A very warm welcome to DisruptX, Yousef. It's such a pleasure to have you with us on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you a lot for, having me, and I'm delighted for the opportunity to speak.
And as I said, our topic for today is investor activities. And as you know much better than me, that from 2020, regional agri-tech startups, they've attracted a lot of attention from the investor community. But the question is, do you see this interest sustaining? Do you see this pattern to continue? If so, what do you think are the kind of ideas and innovation that investors are looking for?
Well, I think that the interest in venture capital in general is increasing dramatically. So as an asset class, more investors are looking towards making investments into different stages of startups and companies, understanding their growth potential and understanding the financial model for delivering success. Within that context, agri-food tech is growing in momentum, but I would say probably not growing at the same velocity of growth, and therefore it has a lot to work on and a lot to deliver. And accordingly, we still are in the stage where across the region, and when we say the region, we need to be probably well defined in terms of what do we mean by the region. But if we look at it from North Africa, are we talking about it? Does the region include sub-Saharan Africa? Are we looking at the Middle East within its wider context? Is Turkey part of this or not? And of course the GCC and the Arabian Peninsula. So I think overall the need for having a theme-based focus on agri-food tech needs to be basically structured in a manner that can deliver more results and be more attractive for investments locally, nationally, and internationally. And I'll probably put in just to put you in context again, just to how does the world see agri-food tech in general? So we went through. Currently, we're still in a way in the COVID crisis. We haven't yet come out of it in its totality, but we are now witnessing the Ukrainian war and the spillover effect that it has on the value chain when it comes to the agricultural sector and the agricultural scene in general. But if we look at this period of challenge between 2020 and 2021, these two specific years, the total venture capital investment into the agri-food tech space, specifically the agri-food tech space, was in 2020 was around $28 billion US, and that number nearly doubled in 2021 to $52 billion US. And if we look at the response globally, regionally, and let's focus on the region. I mean, the capital of agri-food tech is very much still the United States of America, followed by, and the top three are the US, consistently China and India, and we always find in the top 20 different players coming up and going down in different countries. But I would want to highlight a couple of countries out of that list. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about Singapore, for example, and Germany. In 2021, Germany had a total agri-food tech expenditure of $307 million. Okay, so let's put that in the context of the numbers that you mentioned also, and in the number of transactions that we witnessed in the last 2 years, or 2 years specifically. Let's be specific to the 24 months that have just passed. In 2021, the total venture capital spending on agri-food tech for Germany went up to $3 billion US. Okay, so that's the paradigm shift that we're witnessing globally, and we're not witnessing that at the MENA level. Okay, so we're not witnessing that within the Middle Eastern, Northern African countries, where agri-food tech is really becoming a topic of strategic interest, and as I said, the best way to witness it is to see how much money is being spent on an annual basis. Singapore also went from 195 million venture capital spending in 2020 to $1 billion in 2021, and then in 2020 Turkey was not even on the list in the top 20. We now witnessed it in 2021 with another $1 billion investment, and the UAE popped up with around $600 million in 2021. So are we at the stage where, if you look at the total size of population, the crisis that we have witnessed and gone through, the need for innovation to really come in and increase the performance of farms, increase yield, better manage our natural resources, make sure that we can create alternatives, introduce more crop diversity, allow people to, or farmers basically, to be capable of having crops across the year, trying to overcome the seasonality challenges. All of these things are ingredients for what should be a very vibrant and successful and very attractive agri-food tech space, but we're not there yet.
On that note, would you share a few examples from HASSAD, the kind of startups that you are mentoring and supporting, and the kind of technologies that they are leveraging to make a real difference in enhancing food security in the region?
Well, I mean, so what HASSAD is, I mean, what we are trying to look at and we're looking forward to is to always be capable of attracting a diverse group of businesses and companies in areas that serve the farm, okay, or serve farming in general. So let's just educate ourselves and remind ourselves what do we mean by that. So I mean, it includes farm management softwares. Can we automate the farm and the mechanization aspects of that farm? And what type of elements that can be introduced when it comes to indoor farms, aquaculture, the type of elements that can contribute to connecting between farmers and between consumers. Okay, so whether it's online or different platforms that can allow mimicking the central markets, or trying to allow farmers to have easier access that can allow them to reach consumers, and therefore increasing their margin of profit and increasing and contributing towards their profitability. So with it, and then you can go up layers and layers and layers. So you could reach a point where you're looking at entities that are looking at different biotechnologies that exist, that are unique to our region and to our space. And when we talk about HASSAD, one startup that comes to mind is iPlant, for example. iPlant as a entity was one that really showed, it was founded by three different founders. The potential of them is really driven by the three being PhD holders, all introducing different intellectual property into the solution that they presented, anchored with R&D and research, and focusing on an interesting element related to vertical farming. So that type of work is the one that we want to see more of. And there are others. There's RGS, Radical Growth Solutions, which is an interesting hybrid of a Jordanian, Pakistani-based, Bahraini-based startup that has also gone to raise capital at strong valuations, which really allow for a focus on the biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues we face when it comes to water scarcity. So how can we address that specifically in these different, very diverse environments? A farmer in Jordan is not the farmer in Pakistan, and the agri scene in Bahrain is totally different. So it's these type of examples that one can basically highlight and see the need for more as we go ahead, and also, of course, the need for more attraction from investors to go ahead and invest behind this.
And having seen these, interesting startups doing so much work in the space, according to you, what are those dominating agri-tech trends that you see coming in 2023? And also, how do you see the entire MENA agri-tech landscape evolve? How will it look like at the turn of the decade?
Well, I mean, with structured intervention, well, first and foremost is we need structured intervention, okay? So we cannot wait for things to happen. What we have been working on is to deliver a paradigm shift in terms of how we look at agri-food tech going forward, okay? And that it is not a novel. I mean, so for certain individuals, they will see it as a novelty, or some will even consider it a nice to have in a way, but that's not the case, okay? This is a sector that is integral to the to food security, okay? So when we talk about, I mean, I was recently part of a task force that was working on food security, and a lot of developments and ideas and thoughts were driven around that. So the emphasis, the message was that we need to work in the next 2 years, in the next actual 18 months, to deliver a paradigm shift. And we measure that paradigm shift by a couple of metrics. I mean, one, we want to see more public institutions acknowledging the need for focusing on accelerating the growth of the sector, of the agri-food tech sector, and liberating a lot of regulations that can allow that. So from the Ministry of Industry and Trade, or in some cases, different Food and Drug Administration requirements and regulations, to different standards and metrology organizations, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Agriculture, of course, Ministry of Water, depending on each country and its ministerial structure. So to see more higher education involvement in research that can allow for R&D to thrive in the that can become the platform which ideas and ideation anchor themselves, and which can allow growth in R&D space. And you gave the example of KAUST. KAUST, the King Abdullah University for Science and Technology, is an R&D hub. A lot of the costs associated with getting that startup off the ground were supported, were funded by the R&D that was, the R&D budgets that were made available to the researchers that were working on the different solutions that they wanted to address. And therefore, the more we have of that, the more we make it easier for investors to come at a later stage and fund these projects going forward, right? And I think that we're working hard right now on also developing a map for creating multiple, and understanding that venture capital in general is facing a similar challenge. But we want to see how can we have a dedicated funding and financial support for the agricultural sector, for agri-food tech. So if you as a farmer come to us and say, I need funding, and you are associated with technology, then we want to give you a preference in funding, in providing you with different financial tools and facilities versus someone else that comes and says, I would like funding, but does not use technology as part of the value chain that he is creating in the farm. So I think that overall, that is a very important point that we've been really aggressively pushing for, so we can witness this potential growth that we want to realize by 2025, 2027, year by year. But it's really, I don't like to say by 2030 or by 2025. We are today in July, the last days of July 2022. And as VC, as startups, as accelerators think and should think always, is that the month does not end until the last hour of midnight. So we want to keep pushing aggressively for this growth to be seen as part of the differentiation that each and every country in the region should look at, and therefore see results by the end of 2022, and then build on those results quarter by quarter across 2023. With this type of momentum, we can hopefully realize the benefits that we want for the sector. If I want to put it in numbers, we need to witness much more growth as a region. I mean, if you look at UAE alone, attracting around $600 million of funding, and it also depends, of course, on where did you domicile a company versus another. But if we look at the region, we need to hit double-digit growth in VC spending into the agri-food tech. I do forecast that if we have an articulated, well-defined approach and implementation plan, we could see around a billion plus of venture capital funding coming into MENA by 2025. I don't think that that's a big number. I've seen the mechanics of how other countries have delivered it, and I've seen if you look at population size, investment appetite, and the list goes on. The opportunity for us is really out there to create that footprint and really come to the table with a lot of ideas that are very attractive, solving our own solutions, solving our own problems, bringing on new solutions that can go globally from MENA to other places.
Thank you so much for giving some wonderful examples and joining us on the show. These were incredible insights. Thank you so much, Yousef.
I appreciate it a lot, and I hope that we all collaborate on building a better future for the region, and agri-food tech is always included.
Absolutely. Collaboration is the big word here, indeed.
And and this is an example of a great program. I mean, if we can do more of these things, and I really am very thankful for the opportunity, but this is a platform for us to all talk to each other and keep promoting the discussion. Let's keep the narrative going.
Absolutely, absolutely. Would love to. Thank you so much once again for joining us on the show, Yousef.
Thanks a lot. You take care then. Bye-bye.
Yeah. And thus, we wrap up yet another insightful episode of DisruptX Impact Series. That wouldn't have been possible without the support of Team DisruptX, led by Upasana Barua. To our wonderful audience, as always, keep watching. Do follow us on social media. Send us your thoughts, questions, and feedback. If you have a disruptive story, share with us and get featured in our Did You Know segment. Watch out and stay tuned for the rest of the episodes under the DisruptX Impact Series Future of AgriTech. Thank you.